Okay. You all got the agenda. First of all, let me just preface by saying I think you all know that Nelson's not coming today. He's at a conference. I'm going to just scoot over a little bit here.
Trying to get me out of the picture, huh?
No, I'm trying to get you in the picture. Okay. So in our agenda today, we have a couple of items that we have to really discuss. And we had our I call them sub-subcommittees, because we're a subcommittee of the assurance argument. And within that, we're responsible for Criterion 3, so we broke up the 3 smaller groups. So our smaller groups were the reporting for 3A, 3B, 3C. Jennifer and I did 3A, and Tom and Eric did 3B, and I think Tina and Mary and Nelson did 3C. We have 3B and 3E left, and Tom and I took a stab at 3D over the last couple of days, but I'm going to ask for help with 3D.
I'll do E-I-E-I-O.
Because especially where Eric and Tina, a lot of the components of 3D are student services, and where you have the writing center, and Mary, you're part of CTL, and Tina, you're library. I think it would be important to at least address those areas within those criteria. We'll get to that later. What I want to do today is you all received the evidence list, the chart, and Monique sent that out beginning of the week. And what it did was it was filled in by the subcommittees. So when you looked at 3A, you saw that there was a piece of evidence that Jennifer and I acknowledged. And then using the chart, we went across to the level of the program that made spectrum. What I want to do is to make sure that everybody looks at everybody else, okay? So that you're not in sort of the isolation mode of just looking at 3B or 3C, because we're all responsible for Criterion 3. So what Jennifer and I might have missed, or maybe we misinterpreted, or maybe we didn't see the whole picture. What I'd like folks to do is to go through this, and if there are any places where you see we could make changes, additions, or anything like that, using the track change mode in Word, that you could go in and insert comments or insert changes or ideas or pieces of evidence that maybe you're aware of that we weren't aware of. What I'm going to do today, though, is not ask everyone to review their piece, because we'd be here all day to do that, because it's a very big document. But if you look at the agenda, I used a specific word, and I said, what is causing you angst? What was it when you went through this chart that you discovered might be missing, or that you didn't know where the evidence was, or you didn't know who to ask, or you didn't know where to look? So if you have any of those in your head right now today, what I'd like to do is just go down through A, B, and C and see if any of you have places where we can start to make a list of those areas that we think are problematic, or areas that we need to go searching for more evidence, okay? So let me just turn to 3A for a minute. Jennifer and I, we had we had one long meeting, and then we had a couple of just back and forth emails. And for us, it went pretty smoothly, I thought. We were able to look at what was already developed in the evidence column. And if we liked something, we kept it. If we didn't, we kind of reworded it, okay? So what we then did was we looked across and we said, okay, where is it, what could be the source of some of the items, and is it a strong piece of evidence, okay? For me, the one that causes a little bit of angst is the one under 3A1, where you go down to the bottom of the page and it asks, do any of our programs have outside advisory? And we know that the social work has one. We know maternal child health uses Healthy Children. I believe the NA counseling is looking at some form of certification. But when we think about the number of programs, the PhD doesn't have anything, the Master of Arts doesn't, quite a few of the bachelor's programs don't. So if we were to create a list, I guess I would look at that as an area of concern that maybe we need to look at more deeply or more closely in terms of outside accreditations, outside bodies, looking at our curriculum, looking at our program, and offering insights. I think for 3A, I'm pretty sure that that was the only one that concerned me. Jennifer, I'm going to turn to you real quickly. Was there any other area that you think maybe wasn't as strong as we would have liked it and that we should do a little more digging?
I don't think so. There isn't anything that there isn't anything that pops out to me. I mean, I think I sort of feel like my angst is more about, you know, that we're sort of talking in big general terms, and once we actually start looking, you know, we're sort of saying, yes, all of these things exist, but once we actually start looking, do they all really exist as we're saying they do? So I don't think I have anything about that, but just a kind of general angst, like as if, you know,
okay.
It's going to explode with like confetti, or it's going to be like a glitter bomb or something, and you know, it's going to.
Yeah, that's a good point, because one of the things we're going to talk about today is we're going to start digging at the evidence and having subgroups kind of look at the analysis of that evidence. Even though, because we may have said it was a strong piece, like you just said, Jennifer, maybe until we get into the nitty-gritty, maybe it wasn't as strong as we thought it was. So we'll get into that before the end of the meeting today. 3B, anything jump out at you that you and Eric that you want to address?
You want to go first, Eric, or you want me to?
Go ahead. I don't even have anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, we had no issues with 3B1 and 3B2. They were general education. They were mostly BS associated. When we got to 3B3, 4, and 5, we started to get into having to address from all levels, and Eric and I's level was at the bachelor's degree program. So people will have to, as they're going through, look at 3B3, 4, and 5, especially in the master's and doctoral programs, because you know, either we're going to have to seek information from you, Frank, to go out to live in whatever is it, or else we have recommendation committee representation here from those people. I think that was our biggest angst. Am I correct, Eric?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know that I'd categorize that as angst, but I guess in terms of the spirit of the question, sure. Just sort of those things we're not quite sure about.
Yeah, and I think what I hear Tom saying is that because the two of you pretty much represent the undergraduate program, that there was really, in trying to answer some of that or address some of that evidence on 3B3 and 4 and 5, you really didn't have any graduate faculty sitting there looking at it with you. I think that was the advantage I had of working with Jennifer. you know, we were pretty well represented in terms of how we were able to work together. But I think that that's a point where we have to come back to what's on the chart, because you got a lot of spots there where you've got question mark. So I think once you start digging, or if you need evidence, then again you come to me or Nelson and say, hey, we need to look for where's the evidence for, you know. Anything else on 3B? How about 3C? Tina, Mary? Anything jump out?
I would say
Part of the information.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, we were referring to the faculty handbook, but then we realized that there's a new version in the works of the faculty handbook, so I think that was, so that was, I think, just kind of figuring out where we could actually find the information to support the evidence was kind of an issue for us.
And Frank, I know that Nelson's still working on some open items.
Okay.
And then I think the only thing we had that might be considered a concern,
Yeah.
and Monique, I'm gonna mute you guys. I'm not sure where the echo's coming from. I'm sorry, I lost my track of thought with that. Was the onboarding for the various programs. I think we noted that we have very strong onboarding as far as our systems and technology, but we felt like, I think a concern, and I mean, it is what it is, would be the onboarding for the programs. I don't know what we have on that.
Right. I think that onboarding for faculty, other than what IT does, is probably a weakness of the university. I know that the bachelor's program, Pete Tecaveri is talking about it right now as a new sort of process and procedure, but I think you're right, Mary. There's, other than what IT does in terms of orientation and the CTL course, there really isn't much of anything. Okay, the other thing that's in your purview here as 3C, and I think it's important, is you know, the idea that faculty are you know, continuing to have professional development, that they're updating their CVs. One of the things that we'll talk about today is, you know, updating. All faculty are going to be asked to update their CV. Making sure that faculty are teaching in the right area, so that if you're in the bachelor's, you have at least a master's. If you're in the master's, you have at least a PhD. And if you're in the PhD, you have a PhD plus some, you know, research and stuff like that under your belt. So there's a whole criteria that has to be addressed under 3C. Anything else? Okay, under 3D, Tom and I looked at 3D1. If you don't have it in front of you, that's okay. The 3D1 says the institution develops and documents evidence of performance in its operations. And if you look at 3D, the institution provides support for student learning and effective teaching. Well, we know what support means in terms of things like the writing centers, the library services. But when you look at 3D1, the institution develops and documents evidence of performance. So how do those support services help the performance of teachers and students? So one of the things that Tom and I were talking about is we think that faculty evaluation and student assessment would have to be included in here under under evidence, which we didn't put that in. So that's something that we think we need to add to. I'm not going to go through all of 3D, but what I said earlier is everyone wants to take a look at that, use some track changes, and send that to me, because I've pretty much done 3/4 of what I think might go in there. I didn't send it to everyone, but I'll send it to Monique so we can update that. And then 3E is 3E for me is kind of a, I don't know. 3E says the institution fulfills the claims it makes for an enriched educational environment. 3E1 is co-curricular. I don't know where we go with that. But 3E2 says the institution demonstrates any claims it makes about contributions to its students' educational experience by virtue of aspects of its mission, such as research, community engagement, service learning, religious or spiritual purpose, and economic development. I don't know where to go with that, to be honest with you. So anyone has ideas with 3E2, especially with the research component, maybe at the graduate level, maybe at the PhD level, maybe in terms of community engagement, what the kind of things that students might be doing within their community. I don't know if we are able to gather or collect that kind of information. So any thoughts on that would be greatly appreciated.
So a couple things. I mean,
Do you want me to just write them in as a comment and send them to you?
Sure.
Okay. I think there's a bunch of things in the PhD program that we could list in that section about research, about kind of community building, presentations, activities that go on at the residency and throughout the semester. So I could do that.
Okay. That'd be great. Eric, you want to say? Eric?
I think the same thing applies to some of the master's programs, like the health and wellness program. I think some of their thesis, some of their research projects, and even on the maternal child health program, I think some of the work that they do does have to do with community engagement. I think would fall under that the auspices of community engagement, and then also the social work. The social work, part of the social work degree is doing some sort of an internship, and I think that that idea of internships here comes into play with the social work program. I forget what they call it, but before they graduate, they have to do a semester of some sort of a practice.
Do what? Say it again, Eric.
The social work program they have to do. I have to double check with Carol and Nina what they do, but I know that's something that Stephanie helps out with, and that's something that Carol Stokes Brewer, her primary responsibility there is to get the students placed in some sort of an internship. I don't know if they call it that, but it's something where they do where they're working within the community, taking the things they learn and applying them in some sort of pseudo job. And it's not an actual employment, but similar.
Okay.
So I think something in the social work program applies here too, and Carol Stokes Brewer would be the person to ask.
Yeah, and I'm sure there may be others that we, I'm just talking for myself right now in terms of not really knowing a lot about how we would fill that box in. But again, like Jennifer said, you said, there are places that we can go looking and, to begin to fill that in. And, I just right now do not have a lot of background into what goes on university-wide for that kind of information. Again, do track changes, send it to me, and we'll look at it. We'll go find the evidence.
Okay.
I found on this chart just an overall statement I want to make. I thought it was very useful to me in that it helped me kind of organize where we were going. So it led me through sort of a path, okay? Now I think that we're filling this in and we're kind of finalizing it. Now it's time for us to go back and, you know, what are the next steps, okay? On today's agenda, I put what I thought we need to begin to think about how we would do this. We need to go look at the actual evidence, okay? So where is it, who's got it, and how do we get it, okay? Well, one of the things that came out of my meeting yesterday with the steering committee and LIB was a real sort of strong emphasis that individuals should not be asking other individuals for evidence. I'll give you an example. You shouldn't be going to Chris Goparel as chair of the faculty council or to say, hey, tell me about program review. What you need to do is to say, Frank, I need to find out what are the guidelines for program review that faculty council uses. Then I either get them for you, or I go to Chris, or I go to Liv, and then we bring them back to your subcommittee. That really was a very strong emphasis from Liv yesterday that we can't have every subcommittee going, you know, looking for their own evidence without some kind of organization or need to find that. So when you look at your piece, you're going to say, okay, I need a particular document, I need a particular chart. Now, if there's things in the catalog or the faculty handbook and you have access to them, you don't need to ask me, can you go to the faculty handbook, okay? I mean, you have access to that, and you're not putting somebody out of the way by asking them where's the evidence, okay? If you have evidence, you can go to the catalog. If it's on campus web, you can go, you know, there's a whole website on the library services. We don't need to ask permission to go in there. Student services, there's a whole, you know, there's a whole piece of the campus web on student services. We don't need permission for that. But let's say we say career services is part of student services, and I clicked on career services today, and it was blank. It was empty. Okay? I know we're doing career services. We've hired a person, you know, Stephanie Marcia has been hired to do career services for the university. But when I click on the page, if I'm looking for the evidence, that page is empty. So, you know, one of the things then that we have to do is, you know, I go to Liv goes to Jay Keene and says, hey, where's the description for what we do for career services? Where's it located? You know, that kind of thing. So I guess what I'd like for us to do, if everybody's okay, is to stick with your two-team, you know, group. So Jennifer and I would stay 3A, and Eric and Tom would stay 3B, and Mary and Tina would stay 3C. And then as we move into 3D, we'll talk about how we break that up. So I don't know if anybody's got any objection to that or see that maybe we could do this more organized, but I think that what I'd like to see us do is because we've already sort of established that organizational pattern, that we could keep that pattern going. So that, again, like Jennifer and I, we would look at 3A1, we would say, okay, where are the syllabi and the seminar that we need to look at that addresses the curriculum, okay, and the curriculum for different programs. Then we look at those syllabi and we say, okay, the syllabi have critical thinking, problem solving. Or we go back and we look down to 3A2 and we look at the learning outcomes, the learning objectives, and we find them. And then we analyze, you know, how are those decided upon. Let me bring us back to 3, though. 3 is teaching and learning, quality, resources, and support. Let's not forget the word quality. And everything that we look at for the analysis for our criteria is where is the quality? How can we define quality looking at the evidence? That's going to be an important part of what we do with this assurance argument. That's going to be a very important key word. Our programs demonstrate quality because, and then we begin to define what that is using the particular criteria. So that's going to be an important piece that I want people not to lose sight of. So, 2 things. Evidence, look at what you need, where do you get it, and if you have to make requests for it, come to me or Nelson. Subcommittees should continue to work together as teams to look at the evidence and begin the analysis, okay? We're going to do a little practice writing, okay? If you look at number 3B, 3B is we're going to begin to draft some arguments based on analysis of the evidence, okay? Now, some of you might be sitting there saying, scratching your head, I don't know where to begin. And we're all in the same boat because I don't know if any of us have ever written an analysis report based on accreditation. But what I did, and I shared with Jennifer and I'll share with you, is you can go into Google and you can find other universities that have been through the assurance argument recently, that have written their argument, and we're not plagiarizing, we're not stealing, we're not cheating, we're using them as samples to say, oh, look, this is the way it's been written, okay? I have 2 very distinct ones that I've shared with Jennifer and I'll share with all of you. Bowling Green just completed theirs in 2013, and they have the exact same criteria we used, okay? It's important not to go too far back into your archives with Googling because you might get something from 2008 or 2010. The criteria have changed, okay? So you want to make sure that if you look at a report, you're looking at the same criteria. And the other one was, I believe, Jennifer, what was it, Southwest University? Do you remember? I can send it out to people. I'll send the links out to people. They're there for you to look at if you want, okay? There's nothing that's requiring you to do that, and they're there just as a sample to show you what the writing's like. Our draft of the writing is very informal, okay? We're not looking for pages and pages and pages. In fact, I'm going to say, let's keep it in a very sort of succinct. Your evidence would say you pick up, let's just say Jennifer and I look at syllabi, and we're looking at things like critical thinking and problem solving and stuff like that. Where does our curriculum show that? We may just do bullets and say in the undergraduate CJ program, here's this. In the master's program, they do this. In the graduate program, in the PhD program, they do this. And we might just have 3 simple bullets just to kind of organize our evidence without really trying to get into very deep writing, because that's really not our job, okay? Our job is the analysis. What is the evidence telling us? Is it telling us that we're doing what we say we're doing? That's the important piece. Our programs and courses current. Do they require levels of performance? How do we find evidence to support that, okay? And we don't need to do, you know, a 12-page dissertation. A couple of paragraphs with some bullets would be perfect. The reason that I say that is because our job in the end is not to write the argument. Once all our pieces are put together, Liz sends this out to a professional writer. The professional writer then puts everything together in the same language, with the same organization, you know, so that it isn't like 5 committees submitting 5 different reports that, you know, don't tie together. It has to be very organized and written in, sort of one tone, one voice, that kind of thing. So really, this is just an experiment for us to begin to look at the analysis and how does the evidence support our analysis? At our last meeting, I sent out a sheet to all of you. It was called evaluative writing. The evaluative writing was just a sort of something that Lynn sent out. And it said, data is not evidence. Data plus, excuse me, data plus analysis is evidence, okay? So we need to select data, not collect it, okay? That's an important piece. What is the piece of evidence that's going to support what we're looking at in our criteria? There might be 10 pieces of evidence, but maybe we don't need 10 pieces of evidence. Maybe we just need one solid piece that supports our argument, okay? So we can't get hung up on too much evidence, getting to, sort of micro inspection into too many pieces. Look at your criteria, look at what it says, and then find the evidence and do the analysis. Nelson and I talked today, and we'd like to try to get a draft from all of you by our next December meeting, which I think right now, according to the agenda, is December 16th. Do people find that doable? Do you think it's too much? Are we overwhelming you? Again, our goal here is to have us all work together cooperatively, but not overwhelm you by throwing too much work at you. So I just wanted to touch base and make sure that what we're doing and what we're asking is doable. Any comments?
There's lots of things that are wanting us to be done before, in December. They're trying, in fact, they're getting earlier and earlier, because of the holidays and all that. If it were essential that we have it in December, I'd agree, but if not, January might. I know now we've created a report where we've located where the data is. We haven't got the data. So my big piece now, and Eric's big piece, is we're going to have to get assistance in helping us get the data before we can start to analyze the data. So, that period of time with some holidays coming in between it is a little bit tight.
Okay. So Tom's proposing that rather than have a beginning sort of writing piece by the December meeting, that we push that to the January meeting, which is doable. Folks agree, disagree, want to get going earlier, feel like there's a need to start to understand what we're doing? Anyone?
Yeah, just to kind of follow up a little bit what Tom was saying there, because I'm fine with pushing that back, but I think even more importantly, it's just the way, just some of the stuff we put in there. I mean, maybe this was what Tom was saying earlier, and I didn't quite pick up on that from the standpoint of angst. Like, do we need to pull evidence from every single little program? Or just not every single little program, but every single program. Just the way we have some of that evidence put in there, that would be quite an extensive write-up, I think. Wouldn't it, Tom? If I'm thinking, is that kind of what you were talking about before? That was kind of one thing I think you should get some guidance from above, like from Liv, as far as how much we need to scrutinize the evidence that we have, or the data, that we have there.
Okay.
I don't have the table, but you know what I'm talking about.
Sorry.
I'm just doing it, right?
What did he say? You okay?
Yeah.
Eric? Okay.
That's all I have to say.
I guess I'm.
This is Jennifer.
I think you and Mary are trying to talk at the same time.
Go ahead, Mary.
Thanks, I'm sorry. So when you're speaking of having a draft, and I haven't had a chance to look at other self-studies and so forth, but you had mentioned like bullet pointing, you know, so my understanding, and correct me if I've missed something, we would state whatever our category is, and then select what we feel is the strongest evidence. We may not want to include all the evidence, and then start that analysis piece to say, we are saying this is evidence because it is XYZ type of thing. Is that what you're looking for in a draft?
Yeah, yeah, I think exactly, Mary. I think you captured it exactly. It doesn't have to be 100 pieces of evidence or 100 pieces of documents. You know, I mean, I go back to the one, number one, that Jennifer and I identified as syllabi and seminar sort of information. I mean, you know, we could go out and look at 200 syllabi. I don't think that's the intent. Liv will tell you that when the visiting team comes, they're going to randomly look at pieces of evidence. So if we say syllabi address our idea that you know, student performance is appropriate to the degree, and we say, okay, look at the syllabi in terms of critical thinking, problem solving, learning outcomes. We're not going to say, look at the CJ 303. We're not going to say, look at, you know, seminar 702 in the PH. They're going to randomly say, okay, give me two from the bachelor's and 2 from the master's, and they want random samples to kind of say what we're saying is valid, okay? So if we're saying, if you look at syllabi to identify, you know, student performance in terms of critical thinking, problem solving, learning outcomes, that the university has developed those in every syllabi, if we say that, they want to see that, but they're not going to take the ones that we give them. They're going to say, show me, you know, a couple random syllabi from each program. So, you know, we have to kind of look at a bunch of them to say, this is what we do as a university. So we have oversight over that because we have committees. You know, we have the UCRC and the undergrad that makes sure that every master syllabi is done exactly the same. In the faculty in different master's programs, there are curriculum committees usually run by the dean. So if you look at the MSOL program, they're all consistent because Bill Lax has made sure that they've run consistently. In the PhD program, I'm pretty sure they run the same way by a curriculum committee, and everybody has sort of oversight that those seminars are all run pretty much the same way, and they have university outcomes and all of the other sort of levels of performance. Am I right on that, Jennifer?
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that we would have to write up in terms of, you know, how do we address like 3A. Okay? That help?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else? Because we're running late because I do have a meeting out of the office. So I just want to give everybody kind of an update on what's left on this agenda. We're going to be sending out a process for faculty to do CVs. Most undergraduate faculty and a lot of staff do resumes. And there's a difference between a CV and a resume. And so we have to work on that, and we'll be collecting that. And I think that that's one of our jobs in Criterion 3, because I think it's 3C that's really going to look at that. Then, just so you know that right now, as of yesterday, only 8% of students have done the NOAA Levitt student survey. So we're asking all faculty, anybody on any committees, anybody that works with you, to encourage students to make sure, oh, by the way, have you taken the survey? We really need to get that number up. Okay, so we're asking you, as you work with your colleagues, students in your classes, remember, these are current students. These are not alumni, okay? And then in the next...
Can I interject just for a second? The first thing is on the CVs. I know that, you know, there was a process last year where a template went out for CVs, so I don't know if you're using that template. The PhD program just updated ours again because some of them didn't get on, but I mean, you know, we have that template already from Jim Henderson, but that went through the HR committee.
We're not going to ask people to change it. What we're concerned about with this is that we have probably CVs on record that are maybe 10 or 15 years old and never been updated. So we need to do that because the Higher Learning Commission is really going to look at, you know, our faculty and what have you done for research, what have you done for service, you know, how have you updated your so they don't want to see a CV that's 15 years old.
Right. So my question is just, I totally get that. My question is just, do you want to use that template? Do you have that template? Is that what you're working off of?
We have the template. We're working from it, and I'm waiting for Nelson to kind of make a directive to the university that we're all going to use the same one.
Okay. Great. Great.
I'm thinking there may be a directive to the university.
Yeah, and I wonder, I mean, I don't know what happened in other programs, but I know that in some cases people had updated their CVs, but they never got on the web page. So hopefully it won't be as, you know, hopefully some people did actually do that process, you know, when we had asked for it last year. My other comment was just about the student survey. I mean, I've been telling, you know, encouraging my students to do it. But they are just, they're a little resentful. They feel like the survey is really long, and in the doctoral program, this is like the end of the term, and they all have finals, and they also got their course evaluations last week. So I've gotten a couple of people, you know, give me the like, are you kidding me with this thing? It's long, and that it, there's like, I haven't seen how the survey operates when you go in and take it, like as a respondent, but they were saying that the technical aspect of it, the way it's set up, was like not a lot of questions on each page or one question on each page, and they felt like that, I don't know, because I haven't seen it, but that it was like really cumbersome to do. So I had heard that from a couple of students, and they were like, you know, I can't deal with this right now. I know you need it, but I can't deal with it. So I'm not sure if that's what's going on in other programs or if there's a way to simplify it. If, you know, if we don't get a good response rate, if there's a way to make it more user-friendly or something to get a better response rate, I don't know. But I wanted to share that feedback because the students who told me that are the kind of students who would normally fill out the survey. You know, they're the ones who actually respond when you ask them to do stuff, and they were just like, forget it, I tried, I can't do it. So.
I don't
I'm
think
kind of surprised. I'm surprised at that.
And it's something that they can say. I mean, you can do it. You don't have to do it all in one step. You can do it in increments. You can do it.
Okay.
Pretty sure you can say pieces of it at a time. If you start it and then get back to it. I'm pretty sure. I think that's what I did. But it didn't take me. It wasn't excessive. I think in terms of doing it. It didn't take me an hour or anything like that, and it wasn't something that takes a lot of deep thought or anything like that to do. They could, that's more coming from the other end of being overwhelmed and not needing other things thrown at you to do when they're trying to get all that other stuff done like you're talking about. I certainly understand that. If they're in the throes of all their coursework, being asked to do this, I would probably rub me the other way, rub me the wrong way too, but.
Well, you know, one of them did mention that she was trying to do it maybe on her phone or on her tablet or something. That could be part of what was complicating the way she was seeing it, using it on a different device. So maybe I'll suggest to go back in and say.
I mean, I think I can understand some pushback if you say, hey, can you put 30 minutes of your time aside to do this and sit down at a computer and do it? But, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing it on like the iPad or on the smartphone or anything like that. don't think it's, it's not something that you can do. It's not a, what do you call those quick surveys that they do, that you see us doing sometime where you do 5 questions or anything like that. It's a little bit more involved, but it is something that I would encourage. I was just saying here before when we were muted that I should try and find a way to put that in the signature of the writing center email, because that would be a good way to remind them. And how long is it going to be open? Will it be open with that they can do it after they get their coursework done, or are we closing this soon? Does anybody know?
I don't remember.
So that's something, maybe it's possible that could be something to encourage them with how much time they have to do it. But
About 30 minutes.
exactly, just kind of saying, I don't think it doesn't, I took it, it didn't take me that long, so I don't think it needs to be revamped. I do think there are some questions on it that maybe it's a few more questions than really need to be on there, but anything we can do to maybe soften that a little bit, I think, would be good. I'll try and do something like that. Surprise.
It looks like from Lib's email, the survey is going to close on December 9th. So it says there's going to be, the original deadline was November 18th, but it'll be kept open if it's low response. A second reminder on December 2nd, and then the survey will close on December 9th.
Maybe there's a way to go back to whoever was in control of that and ask them to be, how would we phrase it, like respectful or accommodating of the academic calendar, so where students would maybe have a week after all their work is finished to do it. I don't know if that's even possible. I'm not familiar with all the academic calendars. Most of the doctoral work is usually done, I think, by the beginning of December.
Yeah, by December 1st.
Yeah. So for those programs,
We're
that might be something to take into consideration where they can have written one time after they're done with their work.
Try to remember that the survey is it's a prepackaged survey that, like 48 or 50 of the questions we had no control over. That's why we had, those 10 questions. Every committee had 2 questions that they could add. There's a lot of demographic questions. So, I guess it is what it is, and, we cross our fingers that the results are worthwhile. Okay, I apologize. I have to run. I'm going to, hopefully, Monique, this was recorded, I hope, and we would get the minutes or whatever, right? Hello? I lost everybody.
Yes, I recorded it.
I've lost everybody. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
All
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.